What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. It's June, and for those keeping up, June has become one of the biggest months for Razorback football recruiting, college football recruiting in general. Danny West is going to hop on early on the show to discuss that, and we're also going to rely on a lot of your questions after we have Danny on to kind of drive the narrative of the show. All that and more on today's episode of Hawg Sports Live. Okay, before we get started, today and through the next 3 days, through June 15th, I believe, at 11 o'clock, we're running our 60% off special. The reason we're doing that is because it is such a big month for recruiting. June used to be a very quiet month, but we want to entice you to come and check out what we've got going on. Danny West is doing a great job with all the stuff. You got camps going on. They had 3 this past weekend. He had 7 official visitors in town, and we're going to talk to Danny about all that. But if you want to get the real lowdown, the inside scoop on it, sign up for our 60% off offer at HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Breaks down to 83 cents a week, $3.58 a month, and billed at just $42.96. With that, you get our crystal balls, all of our discussion on the Razor's Edge Premium Forum, where we really keep you up to date, breaking down everything that's going on with Razorback recruiting and, of course, Razorback sports in general, and all of our content that we have, all of our VIP content that you want to go check out. HawgSports.com, the number one site for Arkansas sports and recruiting coverage, and the largest. All right. Before we get into that real quick, before we talk to Danny, I'm going to call him in just a second, but Curtis Wilkerson been keeping everybody updated on the Grant Nelson situation. He left, June 9th? Is it that long ago? June 9th, and we're still waiting. We know Sunday, Monday, sometime around then to expect a decision. As of this morning, nobody knows anything. There is kind of more of a buzz towards maybe the Alabama side of things. I think the visit was just like very laid back from Nelson and his camp, so maybe not knowing exactly how to read things. But we'll find out soon. He's the number 3 ranked prospect in the transfer portal and would round out Arkansas's basketball roster, which is now at 12. And if they were to get him, that would give them 13 now. Right now, you've got Devo Davis coming back. Obviously, I'm not going to go over the whole list of players coming back, but he was the latest, I guess, to announce that he was returning to Arkansas. Jordan Walsh obviously staying in. Layden Blocker coming in. We had some questions about Bay Fall. There's been some rumors that he's not going to end up at Arkansas. There's no truth to that. He's going to end up at Arkansas. He's just not here yet. He's finishing up, his classes and stuff, and then we'll be here sometime this month. So that was like a last question I think I got asked yet on the other show. I don't think I got to it last week, so nothing outstanding or concern with Bayfall there. Let's see. For those keeping up with the NBA Finals, the Nuggets play the Heat tonight. It's Game 5. They have a chance to wrap up the series. It's 3-1 right now in favor of the Nuggets. On the Bet Saracen app, Denver is -9. -9 pick to win it at home in front of Nugget Nation. There's also a lot of cool specials like Nuggets to win the race to 10 points, Jamal Murray and Jimmy Butler to score 30 points each. It's plus 700. A lot of cool deals on the Bet Saracen app, different ways to bet responsibly, of course. But I don't know, can add a little bit of action. Sometimes it's fun to add a little bit of action to games that don't include Arkansas especially, maybe give you a little more incentive to watch and root a little bit. But those are the deals on the Bet Saracen app right now. Okay, I want to go over the camp schedule real quick because we just had 3 camps this weekend. You had the specialist camp. This is June 11th, so this was on Sunday. You had the specialist camp. You had the lineman camp and 7-on-7. Or excuse me, no. Not the 7-on-7, but you had that's on the 14th. You have a lineman camp and 7-on-7 coming up on the 14th. But let's backtrack a little bit. So you had, you said the high school camp. That was on Sunday. That was grades 9 through 12. It was all morning long. And, again, you can read all of Danny's updates on that. You had Kane Archer and Cash Archer, the 2 brothers, 2026 quarterback from Greenwood who's been offered by Arkansas. You had the specialist camp, which started at 11 o'clock. And then on the 14th, you've got the lineman camp and the 7-on-7 camp. So that's June 14th. The high school one-day camp, you have 3 of those coming up, the 15th, 16th, and 17th. The lineman camp and 7-on-7 camp is June 21st. And that should wrap things up. So a lot of camps. It used to be back in the day, I remember like when Houston Nutt was here, maybe Bielema too, there'd be like 2 camps. You'd have like a high school 4-day camp and you'd have a prospect camp, and that was it. And now you have a lot more, but you also don't have as many overall high-profile guys going to these camps. At least, guys who are being recruited now, because everything's moved up so much. Arkansas's already got 10 commitments for the class. They hosted 7 official visitors. They've got like 24 more scheduled for this month, including the 23rd weekend. They've got like a ton scheduled that weekend, like 17 guys or something coming in. Okay. Y'all want to get to Danny. Y'all want to hear Danny talk about recruiting, not me. Okay, for those of you who don't follow Danny West, you can follow him at Danny West 24/7 on Twitter. He is the HawgSports recruiting analyst and has been at it for well over 12 years now, covering Razorback recruiting, and just does a fantastic job. Best guy in the business. And he's a first-ring pickup guy. There he is.
What's up, man?
What's up, Danny? How you doing, man?
What's happening?
Oh, not much. I was just kind of running over the camp schedule that's coming up, and you were at the camp this weekend, and we'll talk about that a little bit first before we get into some of the stuff with the official visitors who came in, and then looking ahead to the future. What did you think of the camp? Camps aren't as big for like prospects and getting offers and stuff. It's just kind of a little bit different than it used to be.
Yeah, it's tough to get kids to come to camp anymore, especially trying to earn an offer, unless they're super young. They just feel like, I guess they don't have to anymore. There's so much film, so much Twitter. You can put your film out there in front of hundreds of coaches at any given moment. So I don't know. I guess that plays a big part of it, but not a huge camp, Trey. Just gonna shoot you straight here.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a whole heck of a lot going on, but was impressed by Kane Archer and Grayson Wilson. Obviously, Grayson's committed to Arkansas in the 25 class. Kane's got the offer for 26 out of Greenwood. And I thought both of those guys, for what I saw yesterday, trying to make my rounds and see everybody, but they are who we thought they were, right? They both spun it pretty good, but that's to be expected from a camp setting. But outside of that, I want to say there was about 150 for the first camp, the high school camp, unpadded, so pretty standard camp. And then the second one, the specialist camp yesterday evening, I heard they had 175.
Wow.
That just seems like an awful lot. So
yeah.
I posted on the board the other day, you remember a few years ago, I'd say 5-10 years ago, everybody's talking about when are we going to hire a special teams coordinator. And it's just funny to me. You look up and there's 175 specialists out there for a 6-hour camp yesterday. So, yeah, camp season. Got, I guess, the rest of the week starting Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday camps every day. A couple of those are 2-day camps. And hey, I'm in the deep end right now, dude. I'm in the middle of it this week.
Yeah, people don't realize, just a few years ago, when the recruiting calendar changed, it used to just be, I can remember when there'd just be a couple of camps in June, and that was it. And there wasn't really any recruiting going on aside from camps, but now it's official visitors coming in, and that's really where you had, some of the stars. You had 7 official visitors come in over the weekend. Your overall impressions of the weekend, how it went for Arkansas in that department?
Really, really good weekend, in my opinion. Shaq McCroy, it starts there, the highest rated visitor on this past weekend's list. I think they're really, really in a good spot. And I don't have to say that because he said yesterday that Arkansas is number 1 on his list. A top 60 guy nationally, 4-star offensive lineman out of Clay Chalkville High in Pinson, Alabama. So Oregon, man, Oregon has always kind of been the team that everybody felt like he might be leaning to. And then, he's visited Arkansas now 4 times. And, buddy, I just get the feeling that Arkansas is going to be really, really tough to beat. I know the Ducks are getting the last visit later this month, and that's always sketchy because Oregon they're known for that, man. They sneak in there, and I know they're a long way from just about everybody, but, they've got all the money and all the facilities and the wow factor, so you always have to worry about them. But, man, just watching the families interact with Coach Pitt and Kennedy and all these guys, Coach Fountain's doing a really good job. I think people overlook that about McCroy. Fountain's really kind of the lead guy there as the area recruiter. And, man, I just think they did a heck of a job this weekend, and they've made it really, really hard for Shaq to tell them no at this point, would be my guess. So I'm not ready to lock in a crystal ball or anything because of that Oregon trip in 2 weeks. He's going to visit Kentucky this week. Not too worried about Kentucky at the moment. But, yeah, man, I think they're in really good shape there. And then, of course, a few other guys. Brian Huff, a guy we overlook quite a bit because he's in state, you know. You kind of take those guys for granted sometimes. But, yeah. And he was back on campus this weekend.
6'3.5", 221 for Brian Huff. I just want to mention real quick, Danny, you didn't mention the height and the size of Jaquan McCrory, who they call Shaq. 6'8", 365, plenty big.
Plenty big.
Yeah. 6'8", 365. Huff is another big, good-sized linebacker, 6'3.5", 221 out of Valley View in Jonesboro. Go ahead.
One of the most impressive-looking guys on the Huff was really, really impressive. I think the size checks out there, and I was pretty impressed by how he looked this weekend. But yeah, I just feel like we kind of take the in-state guys for granted sometimes, and this is one that may have been, I don't want to speak for him, may have been slipping a little bit in recent months. So thought it was good to get him back on campus. Evidently, Travis Williams put on a show Saturday in the team meetings. They let the recruits and parents and everybody sit in on these team meetings, and they kind of break down how we would use you and you and you. And evidently that had a really, really big impact on Huff because they pointed to number 42 last year, Drew Sanders, obviously. Man, that'll make you sit up in your seat, right? Yeah. I mean, you start talking about a second rounder and yeah. So I think they really hit it hard there. Jordan Burns.
Hey, Danny, real quick though, I want to bring up something. You mentioned him being able to sit in on film session and stuff like that. Isn't it interesting and odd to you how you can bring recruits in, you can show them all this video, let them sit in on meetings, let them see how you do all this stuff, but the moment a guy signs with Arkansas, he's not allowed to do any of that stuff. You have to leave him alone. Yeah, isn't that weird to you?
Yeah, a little bit weird. A little bit weird. I'll make a phone call after we hang up.
See if you can get that straightened out because it just seems odd.
I'll do that for you. Another
linebacker,
Jordan Burns. I'll run through him quickly, but a physical guy. I thought he had the quote of the week, and I tweeted it out. But he talked about killing people, which we don't take that. I want to make sure nobody takes us seriously on that. We don't want anybody getting killed. But the figure of speech in football, I felt like that was a pretty strong statement. But Tennessee's probably the problem there. It seems like he's down to 2 schools. Didn't want to give a whole lot of details, but you can kind of piece it together.
Out of Atlanta, Georgia.
Tennessee. And they've always had success at Pace Academy too, the Vols. So it could be a hurdle to jump there. But tight end Decker DeGraff coming all the way from California, Glendora, California. I'm going to be curious to see how they play this one out. They hit a home run as far as the visit. Of course they did. He's Pac-12 country, comes to SEC country. It's going to blow you away.
Is that Danny, is that a Morgan? I mean, obviously Morgan Turner's the tight ends coach, but is that a guy that he recruited, I guess, from his days at Stanford? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know that he offered him at Stanford prior to coming over here, but, he had to have known about him. I would venture to guess anyway, just being the California comparison there. But, he offered him at Arkansas and finally got him on campus. Decker was talking about making it unofficial out here in the spring and just never materialized. Finally got him on campus, and people can read the story, but he was pretty blown away. I'm just saying, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they play it from the standpoint that he's the first guy to come to campus. Do you just try to lock that one up, or it's still pretty early, I guess, in the calendar year. Could you get a few more guys in the fall, or do you want to go ahead and try to shore this one up? I'm just not sure where they stand with that one yet. So Nate Palmer, a couple of speed guys out of Texas. Nate Palmer, a running back out of Decatur, Texas, and then, of course, Akari Johnson, Pleasant Grove High School in Texarkana, a cornerback, we're calling him. He's listed as an athlete. Both those guys can really run. And, there's I just updated the Big Red board for defense and offense this morning. But you look at some of the cornerbacks they're in on, man, big-time dudes. They got a top 50 kid coming in this weekend. Selman Bridges is, borderline 5-star. So a lot of corners. They've already got, depending on how you want to look at it, 2 or 3 committed at corner. So just a lot going on there. But I feel like Akari is really, really high on Arkansas coming out of this visit, as well as Nate. But Nate made it sound like he's got Arkansas in his top 2, and again didn't want to give out that other school. So I'm thinking maybe USC, maybe TCU, which is obviously either way, it's a lot of competition to beat. But felt like they did a really good job with those 2, and then Kendall Jackson, defensive lineman out of Florida, Gainesville, Florida, and he's got an offer from the Gators. So, I mean, I haven't done the study on it, Trey, but going into an SEC town and trying to get one that's wanted by the hometown team is pretty tough, I would imagine.
Pretty tough, especially you're talking about Florida way out there. Yeah. Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit about more about. Sorry, you out of breath. I'll let you breathe. Yeah. I want to talk to you a little bit about Nate Palmer, the running back out of Decatur, Texas. 5'10 and a half, 185 pounds, 4-star composite back. Arkansas has already got a commitment from a running back in Jaden Ball also. And then, of course, Nate Palmer visits this weekend. A little bit different. Jaden Ball goes like 6 foot, 214. So different types of backs. But we talked about that a little bit recently, how probably Arkansas is going to want to take 2 running backs out of this class. Especially probably Rocket Sanders moving on, and you don't know what happened with the other guys and all that stuff. But probably take 2 running backs out of the class. There's also Braylon Russell, an in-state 4-star recruit who's formerly committed to Arkansas. Things have picked up again since. You have him warm on the Big Red board. Now, I bring up Nate Palmer because this is a free article that you wrote. All the other ones, you covered everybody who visited, and they were all VIP, but this was a free article. People can read if they want to go get a taste of it. But how do you think things are going to shake out at running back with Palmer there, having Arkansas in his top 2, with Jaden Ball already committed, and then Braylon Russell also, who's, I believe, scheduled to visit later this month, right?
Well, not for sure yet. Not for sure on Russell. We'll see how that one goes. So as of this moment right now today, I'd have a little more confidence in Palmer being the guy, just being honest with you. Now, that could change tomorrow. Who knows? But that's just how it seems to me right now. It seems like Russell may be headed out of state, and we'll see if that changes. If he gets up for an official and they blow him away, who knows where it goes from here. But coming out of this particular visit, I feel like Palmer, my biggest question about Palmer was how is he going to see, first of all, the current depth situation. That's pretty daunting, when you look up and see those 5 on the scholarship distribution. That's a lot now. Now, I'm not saying he's scared of competition or anything, but that's just a lot to walk into. And then secondly, as you mentioned, there's another good one on the way already, Jaden Ball. But, of course, Jaden is a guy that he could be viewed as more of a utility guy, really, flanker type, slot guy. Just a lot you could do with him. A guy that's wanted on defense by some teams. So who knows with Jaden. But right now we are calling him a tailback. And, long way around it here. But Nate made it sound like he watched the bowl game, against Kansas. And he saw Rocket go down and how R-Dub and AJ stepped up, and both of them had right there at 100 yards. Yeah. He was really, really impressed by that. So, I think that's what you want to hear when you're trying to go after 2 guys. You want guys that are open to that and kind of understand that the days of getting 32 carries a game are long gone. You're probably in this league, you're going to have 2 or 3 guys most of the time. So it's just a matter of trying to find those guys and them being okay with it, I guess. And it sounds like he is.
Danny, we talked about running back a little bit, obviously with Nate Palmer and Jaden Ball and Braylon Russell, kind of all being in the mix there, probably take 2. We know KJ Jackson's on board at quarterback, so that's situated. They have the commitment from the number 1 prospect in the state of Arkansas, and Courtney Crutchfield, who's a top 100. What is he, 60th something nationally? It made a huge leap. C.J. Brown was the first official visitor in the month of June to come to Arkansas. Wide receiver out of Bentonville. Who else is in the mix?
Find out on him real quick.
Yeah,
June 30th on CJ.
Okay. Who else is June 30th? Okay, that's coming up. So who else is in the mix at wide receiver? How many do you think they're going to take at that spot?
Man, Man, I could see them taking up to 3. They obviously what they did in transfer portal, and that was quite a bit. But maybe 1 or 2 guys get out of here. Maybe they get up to 3, I would imagine. But it's just tough looking at the current scholarship distribution, which I think you do a great job with. By the way, it helps me out with my stories a lot. But man, it's hard to see more than that. Having said that, Trey, who knows, man? 6 guys could transfer after this season,
Absolutely.
I mean, who knows? That's why I'm always so afraid this time of year even in December, to try to put a number on it anymore. I mean, you just never know. But I would say 2 to 3, just spitballing with you right now. But Ashton Bethel-Roman, another guy who's coming in for an official. You got Stonka Braylon Burnside out of Starkville, Mississippi. Obviously, again, the SEC hometown situation there with Mississippi State wanting him. And then Mekhi White coming over from King George, Virginia. We haven't talked about Mekhi a whole lot, but it's kind of funny. If I had to rank all the guys that I've talked to most consistently over the last year in the 24 class, this kid's always telling me, hey, I'm coming. I'm coming on unofficial. I'm coming on an unofficial. Promise you, don't forget about me. I'm coming. So, lo and behold, here he is coming in this weekend. I guess we'll see where it goes.
Arkansas has not had a lot of success, Danny, in Virginia. I mean, the last guy I can think of from Virginia was Quinte Funderburk, who came in for spring football and then disappeared. We never heard from him again.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. He got out of here pretty quick. We've seen a few of those, but we'll see if it's different for Mekhi. He's number 34 athlete in the country, number 7 in Virginia, borderline 4-star. I didn't realize he had moved up that high, but he was at Maryland this past weekend. He's got some really good offers. I'm not sure exactly. I never know which ones are 100% committable, but when you look up and see Georgia and LSU on the offer sheet, that's pretty solid there.
Arkansas needs to do a good job, I think, in recruiting wide receivers. It's going to be interesting after this year. You've got some guys like Tesla, I believe, could come back for another year if he wanted to. I'm not sure on Broden. I think Armstrong might be done. I can't remember exactly. But, with KJ probably moving on after this season, like the lure of bringing in, highly regarded transfers like they've been able to do the last couple of years might be a little bit more difficult with a little bit more unknown at quarterback. Tight end, Danny, obviously they recruited extremely well at that position in the last group with Shamar Easter and Luke Haas coming in and brought in Varquise Gums, who's also younger. So probably, you look at it just on the outside, maybe one guy at that position. Offensive line, we know they pretty much always want to bring in 4. But you're right. You kind of just have to have a template of, all right, this is what we probably need to bring in each class because you are able to address so many issues through the transfer portal also. But we know probably, somewhere like 4 offensive linemen. You have Kobe Brannon, Jaquan McCroy listed as hot right now for Arkansas. We talked about McCroy, Brannon being from Fort Smith, Southside. But probably a couple more offensive linemen as well, don't you think?
Yeah, I would imagine so. And they've got one coming in this weekend, Zuri Madison. I'm sure you see him there on the board. Warm, moving up, and has been for the last couple of weeks. But, man, I heard
another SEC town there, Danny. Lexington, Kentucky.
Right. Another one there. So third one on this show. But, hey, I heard this guy is one of their favorite targets simply because his football IQ. They say he's just off the charts in terms of understanding, different concepts and stuff. So that's a guy that they're really excited about. I'm not sure when they offered a couple of weeks ago, everybody saw at the time on his profile page, I want to say he was 6'5", 280. And we found out pretty quickly, now this dude's 305 now. He's grown quite a bit, number 33 interior lineman in the country, and has a really good offer list as well. He's already visited West Virginia. He's going to see Miami after Arkansas, so pretty good competition there. But, man, I think they're starting to heat up on this one. Zuri Madison, keep an eye on that name. And did want to mention on the tight end group, man, I'm hearing they're really high on this Varquise Gums and Francis Sherman both. They think they've hit on both of those guys so far. Now, that's really, really early feedback. But I got to look at Shamar Easter yesterday. He looks like he's starting to fill out a little bit. He's only been here a couple of weeks now. And Luke, of course, you mentioned him. We heard a couple of weeks ago that he's up to 238 now.
Yeah. Who does Easter remind you of physically? I can tell you who
know,
he
maybe a young Sprink a little bit.
Little Sprink, yeah. He kind of reminds me physically, just the way he's put together, Jamario Bell a little bit.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, super early Jamario. Yeah.
Jamario, of course, had a lot of injuries throughout his career. But Sprink is a good comparison. Also, all of those guys are kind of built similarly. All right, Danny. Anything else you want to add before we cut you loose?
Oh man, I could probably go on for 6 hours here. There's a lot to talk about, but
we got to save
direct
something.
them to the site. We'll direct them to HawgSports, man. I'm about to fill this thing up.
All right, brother. Appreciate you.
All right, man. We'll see you.
All right, everybody. That's Danny West. Again, follow him at Danny West 24/7, the HawgSports recruiting analyst. And we're going to jump into your questions now. But before we do that, one more time, I want to remind you guys, 60% off. This runs through the 15th, June 15th at 11 p.m. Central Daylight Time. So the promotion, 60% off. There's no promo code or anything like that. If you've ever wondered what we do at HawgSports, you've ever been curious about it, go to HawgSports.com and check us out. You can see some of the free content that we have on there. But if you like the show, if you like what we do on Drive Time, all this stuff, the walk and talk, all that stuff is to kind of complement what the main thing that we do, and that is the website. It's where we break all of our news. It's where we paint the big picture for recruiting and team coverage and all of that stuff. HawgSports.com, 83 cents a week, $358 a month, and billed at just $42.96 for the entire year. Go check us out. We'll promise you like what you see at HawgSports. It's how we get you through the door. We got to give a promo, give a reason to come through. That's always been our biggest problem, getting people through the door. And once they do, people stick around. They didn't know what we have offered. Okay. Let's see where we go. Don Henry says, "What's up, Biddy?" What's up, Don? Isaac Riley says, "I appreciate the content as always, Trey. Your team does an awesome job. I'm excited to see the new coaching staff. Does anyone else feel the same?" I hope so. Appreciate that, Isaac. Isaac also says 2022 was a fun year for all sports, but didn't seem to end well for us besides maybe the bowl game. Somebody pointed this out the other day in the comments. I didn't mention, Arkansas also won the SEC, tied the SEC in baseball. And so I want to make sure I did mention that because it ended in a disappointing fashion. Losing in a regional, you wouldn't obviously want to do that with where Arkansas was projected hosting the regional and everything. Baseball, I just feel like, you kind of got to get lucky also along the way. We see that with the number one ranked team over and over again, not winning the College World Series. But it just seems like in football, I feel like we always end up where, this was the best team. In basketball, I feel like, these guys are playing better than anybody. But in baseball, it's just like, get in and see where it goes. But didn't seem to end well. The bowl game ended well, although they tried to ruin that. Basketball ended well. I mean, Sweet 16 is still pretty good, knocking off Kansas, especially for all the adversity the basketball team had throughout the season. Obviously, finishing 10th in the SEC was not what anybody thought was going to happen for basketball. But to me, to have like a really good season, you have to have a couple things happen. You have to you have to have a solid regular season, really good regular season, and you have to make some noise in the tournament, at least get to the Sweet 16. Because no matter how good a season you had, if you get bounced in the round of 64, then people make a joke about you. It's a joke. No matter what you did in the regular season, you have to complement both of them. And if you don't have – you can have an okay regular season as long as you make some noise in the tournament and people look back and say, it wasn't bad. But for me to have a great basketball season, you need to have both happen. And I wouldn't say it was a great basketball season because they didn't have a great regular season. But a lot of that was so much injuries. They had injuries, key injuries in football. I think it cost them at least one game, maybe two games. I think it cost them two games. I think it cost them the Liberty game and probably one between the LSU and Mississippi State game, probably the LSU game at home. Not having KJ Jefferson, being decimated by injuries in the secondary was a big reason they finished 131 out of 131 teams. Basketball, obviously, with Nick Smith and Trevon Brazile, those were devastating injuries for the basketball team, and they overcame a lot of that. And then baseball, it just seemed like every week there seemed to be a new injury with baseball. So definitely an injury-plagued season for the three money sports at Arkansas. Chris M. Slapnick says, been a member for years. Best hog coverage out there. Appreciate that, Chris. Isaac Riley says, I'm the only one asking questions. Guys, we don't have any more questions. We got we got no more questions, and we've got, I'd like to at least go 10 more minutes. So if you got a question you want to ask, then now's the time to do it. Otherwise, we're just going to have to stop the show, because that was kind of the theme today, was answering questions. We never have this few questions, and I'm asking for questions. Isaac Riley says, I'm the only one asking questions, apparently. I want NCAA football to come out already. The NIL stuff is crazy. I wonder if they're going to incorporate NIL stuff into NCAA football. Now, it doesn't come out until a year from now, basically, next summer. It'll be NCAA football 2025, I guess is what they'll call it, because they always put it out a year, say it a year ahead, I guess, so it doesn't seem old maybe later on when just January rolls around. But it's unfortunate that we're probably not going to see Rocket Sanders and KJ Jefferson, for Arkansas, with the way everything's going. But, probably projecting both those guys to declare for the NFL. So you won't have those guys. I think that kind of stinks a little bit that they weren't able to get it done a little bit earlier. But they're still negotiating some stuff, trying to figure some stuff out with that. I hope the gameplay is decent. I like the gameplay, on the older games, like on Madden, like the things that they've done with Madden. I'm not a huge fan of the gameplay on that. I'm hoping it'll be more, kind of like it was before. I don't know when they made all the changes, but Sean Follis says, it's worth the money. He's talking about HawgSports. Never regretted it. Appreciate that, Sean. Really do. Neil Tucker says, how is the offense starting to look under Enos? Well, I've mentioned this before, but some of the things that stand out to me is the pace is a little bit different. They don't go quite as fast as they have before. They throw more over the middle. They use more 2 tight end sets, more 2 running back sets. They throw a lot of different screen passes, and sometimes KJ Jefferson lines up under center. I don't think that that's something that we're going to see a whole lot of, but we will see that from time to time. Those are kind of the main, just like very basic things that you see. You're still going to see them do a lot of the things that they've done before, things that KJ is good at. I do think we'll see him roll out of the pocket more, just looking, kind of what they did with Talia Tagovailoa over at Maryland, rolling him out of the pocket more. I think one of the big benefits for KJ is going to be Dan Enos from a technical side of things. Arkansas averaged 471 yards a game last year, which most of us would take. The problems were finishing at the goal line. They couldn't get a push with a very veteran, experienced, quality offensive line. Couldn't finish at the goal line, couldn't finish in a lot of short yardage. Those were things that were a problem for Arkansas. But the production, from 20 to 20, that wasn't really an issue for him, as long as KJ Jefferson was healthy anyway. Lindsey Brandon Ward says, go Hogs. Okay. Isaac Riley says, what position group for football do you like the most and feel the most uneasy about? I really like the way the defensive line is shaping up. And I had some interesting comments on Facebook, like after I posted some clips and stuff of different things. One of the things was the defensive line. People were like, hear that every year, and not buying into the hype and all this stuff. Just like, a lot of casual fans who probably don't follow along. I've been saying for years that a big reason for problems that Arkansas has on the defensive line, not telling you that they're going to be great on the defensive line, like people just make stuff up. They see and hear what they want to hear, I guess. But I've been telling you for years that Arkansas has had problems on the defensive line because they have had so much turnover with the coaching staff. 5 different offensive line coaches over a 5-year period, up to the point that Deke Adams arrived. And Deke Adams is now in his 2nd year, okay? And I think a big reason that we see a little bit of a boost with the defensive line is in some of the recruiting aspects, but also especially the transfer portal, is because they have a 2nd-year head coach in Deke Adams now. But I really like the defensive line. I mentioned the other day they go 3 deep at defensive end, 3 deep at defensive tackle. They have 9 seniors on the defensive line, which I think is an incredible number, and I don't think that's ever happened before. I really like Trajan Jeffcoat. I think Landon Jackson's in store for a really big year. By the way, you've got Jashad Stewart, you've got Zach Williams, you've got Nico Davier. I'm missing somebody. There's somebody else I'm missing. But you've also got, Quincy Rhodes coming in, who's a 4-star recruit. In the past, you'd look at Quincy Rhodes and be like, that guy's going to come in and contribute early. But I think they'll be able to probably redshirt him. So, John Morgan's the other guy on the defensive line who's also a senior. So those are your defensive ends and defensive tackle. You've got, Cam Ball, who's a redshirt sophomore, and then you're looking at Tank Booker, Keeby Rose, Eric Gregory, Torian Carter. And you've got Ian Giffard coming in, who's 6'6", like 380, who's, I guess, going to be the biggest guy on the team now, replacing Paris Patterson. It's always a freshman. I talked about that on the last show. But I think defensive line, the group that I feel more uneasy about, I feel, obviously, quarterback, I think, is a better situation with having Criswell in. Running back looks stout. I'm intrigued with the wide receivers. There is some, a little bit of concern because there's so much newness there. But I'm intrigued with those guys. I like where they sit at tight end right now, especially bringing in Barquise Gums. You heard Danny talk about the situation at tight end, also having Luke Has. I'm saving offensive line for last just because that is an area that maybe does concern me a little bit. There's just so much new. But as I've said before, they brought in Sam Pittman for a reason. And one of the reasons, not for a reason, for a lot of reasons, but one of the big reasons was what he could do for Arkansas on the offensive line. We saw what a recruiter he was when he was at Arkansas before. We've watched him bring in a lot of talented guys, him and Cody Kennedy, Andrew Chamblee, and Marion Harris, Patrick Kudas. Luke Brown's another four-star who just came in who had a minor knee injury, wasn't able to go through the spring as a freshman. But he's a guy they feel really strongly about. But what we've seen over the years, and we've just kind of had to wait a little bit, not had to wait, but waited because Arkansas had so many returning guys. You had Myron Cunningham coming back a couple of years, Bo Limmer, who's still at Arkansas, Brady Latham, Dalton Wagner, who, stayed through his super senior year, and Ricky Stromberg, guys that were already at Arkansas. Luke Jones was another guy. I think Luke might have come in the year Bielema came in, transferred from Notre Dame. But regardless, they have not had a guy that they brought up from the high school ranks who's played a lot. Now you've got Joshua Braun, who they brought in from transfer, who was a guy that was committed to Pittman originally at Georgia before signing with Florida and then transferring to Arkansas. So Braun is a Pittman guy. At right tackle, we're looking at Kudas as a Pittman guy. And then left tackle, we're looking at Devon Manuel, who's a Pittman guy. So those guys are finally starting to, get into the picture a little bit. You're talking about three guys that, Pittman, Kennedy brought in. So, but it makes you a little bit uneasy because there's so much newness, And the fact of the matter is you're going to have newness in college football. You're just going to have turnover. So that would probably be the group that makes me a little more uneasy. Defensive line would be the group that I feel pretty good about. And just to kind of look at the rest of it, linebacker, I like where they sit at linebacker right now, numbers-wise especially, and I like some of the talented, from the younger guys. I like those guys. Cornerback, I think they're going to be in good shape, even though it doesn't look like McAdoo's going to be available. I think they're going to be in good shape. And then maybe the next group, if I were picking a side on defense, safety leaves me a little bit uneasy overall. Just depth-wise, what if they have an injury there or something? I just don't know how well they could absorb that. Just, kind of a situation we ran into the spring, we think they're going to address safety, and they do. They get some guys. But as far as getting a big-time guy that, everybody's just kind of holding their breath for, that they really want to come from the transfer portal, that guy just wasn't really out there for them. So look for him, I think, maybe to shake some things up, maybe move Lorando Johnson to safety. That's kind of what I've recommended, and we'll see if they do that. Isaac Riley says, what do you think our ceiling is for football, basketball, and baseball next year? Baseball is tough to say, but I would always just say, national championship is the ceiling. I just feel like eventually Dave Van Horn is going to break through there. But I know you're reloading a lot of stuff. Basketball, I think that, they get Grant Nelson, then who knows? It could be I think it's going to be a really good team. Anyway, I think that they have Final Four potential how they are right now. Now, they can't have injury issues like they had last year, but, I really like some of the guys they brought in, Tremont Mark, L. Ellis, Caleb Battle. They brought in a lot of guys, but I really like what they brought in. The guys, a lot of the guys they have coming back. For me, Devo Davis, I could not see Arkansas winning, going to a Final Four, advancing farther than they have before under Musselman. I couldn't see him doing it without Devo. I feel like, could you really see Devo Davis lacing it up for some team in Europe or in the G League or something, while Arkansas makes this great run, past Final Four when he could have returned to Arkansas and, maybe should have. So the fact that he's coming back, I just kind of try to visualize things, and that's kind of how I visualize it. I just couldn't see Arkansas making a run. So I think that they could maybe make a Final Four. I think I don't put anything past Eric Musselman. In football, I've kind of been saying like 8 regular season wins. I just think, I think the last 5 games, Arkansas has a chance to win every single one of those. The first 3 games, I think they have a chance to win every one of those, a very good chance to win every one of those. The 4 middle games is where it gets a little dicey. You basically got 4 straight games away from Arkansas. You have a 35-day span outside the state of Arkansas where you're playing games, which is just insane to me how that schedule works out. But how they manage those middle games, I think, could determine a lot. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they could win. Things just go really well and they win 9 games. You're talking about an opportunity to win 10. And, you got a starting quarterback back. And that's key. And KJ has had different wide receivers every single year that he's been at Arkansas. He's had different go-to wide receivers every single year. And that's going to be the case this year. So I don't know that that's going to be a huge hindrance on him. To me, again, it kind of goes back to offensive line. Is the offensive line going to be what Arkansas needs it to be this year in terms of protecting him? Okay. Chris McFerrin says, I still say with everyone healthy, we should have been 3 more wins last year, Texas A&M, LSU, and Liberty. Yeah, they should have beaten Texas A&M. They should have beaten Liberty. They could have beaten LSU. Could have. Not should have, but could have. Jason Crow says, just moved back to Arkansas and ready for football season to get going. What are your expectations for the defensive side of the ball this season with the new staff? We kind of ran through position groups, but I really like the new staff. I like Travis Williams a lot. He's going to be, very aggressive, I think. And Arkansas was pretty aggressive last year, one reason they had so many sacks. But I really like Marcus Woodson. He's a guy that, not that, Darren Wilson and Travis Williams don't jump out to me. They do. But I just really like the way Marcus Woodson coaches, and he's a really strong recruiter. Some of the defensive backs that they've been able to get in here early for recruiting stuff has been very impressive. But I like Marcus Woodson a lot. I think he did some real good work in the transfer portal also. So what are my thoughts on how they'll do? I think they'll be better than they were last year. I just don't know how much better. I don't think that they're going to be 131st team in the country in pass defense. I don't know that they're going to get 42 sacks like they got last year. They lost their top 2 sack guys. But I do think it'll be a better defense than it was last year. Just a lot of unknowns, with so many new faces on that side of the ball. But anytime you have a defensive line that's like I think Arkansas is going to be, that definitely gives you a chance. Chris M. Slatnick says, do you think we play Oklahoma and Texas every year from next year out? I've seen mock schedules for the 8-game schedule next year, and it does have them playing Texas and Oklahoma. I would like that. I haven't been to Norman for a game yet, so I would like to go to Norman. But I think when they will go to the 9-game schedule, I believe, in 2025. I said next year, but 2024 they do the 8-game, and then 2025 I think that they'll most likely go to the 9-game. That way they can preserve the rivalries, that would be lost otherwise. But when they do that, I think, and most people seem to feel, Missouri, Texas, and Ole Miss will be the 3 teams that they play every single year. Keenan Camp says, just join in. You're filling on the kid, North Dakota basketball. We talked about Grant Nelson a little bit. All we know as of this morning, it doesn't feel like anybody's been told necessarily based on, what's going on out there that, hey, I'm going to Arkansas or I'm going to Alabama. Now, we do kind of expect some type of decision today. If I had to guess, I don't know. I kind of just based on, kind of some of the things Curtis has said, kind of makes me think he's going to end up at Alabama, but we'll see. You never know until you know. Ron Wilkes says, how much better of a season do you think KJ can have under Dan Enos compared to the last couple of seasons? KJ has been right on the cusp of school records. First of all, he could break the school's all-time passing record this season, believe it or not. If he had stayed healthy last year, he would have thrown for over 3,000 yards, close to 30 touchdowns, ran for well over 700 yards. If he hadn't missed the 2 games and stayed at the same pace that he was at. But I think Dan Enos is really going to help KJ from a technical aspect. Throws a really strong deep ball. Got a great feel for the game. A 168, not 168, like 165 something efficiency rating, which is second all time. 68% completion percentage, which was second all time at Arkansas. So he has really good completion percentage, but there's some he misses the mark on some shorter stuff. Sometimes throws it a little nose down. I think Enos will help him from a technical aspect on some of those shorter throws, and he's going to need to be better at it because Arkansas is going to throw a lot of screen passes. And the screen passes, I think, will probably maybe give him a little more. Not that they didn't do it before, but I just think you're going to see more of it. I think, Barry Lundy used to say those aren't real passes. Like he used to talk about his completion percentage. Like these are, this is a real completion percentage because some of those short stuff, those are like not guaranteed completions, but you're almost always going to complete it. And then it's about the blocking and what the wide receiver does downfield about how many yards you get after that. But I think that'll help his completion percentage and maybe make him, help him break the all-time school record for completion percentage. And we'll see on efficiency. But Brandon Allen owns the efficiency record, and that was done in 2015 in Dan Enos' first year at Arkansas. Justin Williams says, do you think D. Johnson will bounce back this season, be his old self, or do you think he's done, fell behind the other running backs? It's a good question. It's tough coming off of 2 ACLs, but he should be able to go through fall camp this year. He wasn't able to do that last year because it happened, during the bowl game. So this year, since it happened in like week 4, week 5, you would think that, that would give him a little bit of a leg up in, getting ready for fall camp. And if he can do that, then maybe he can. I've said before I felt like he was 1A, 1B with Rocket Sanders back in 2021, and he was maybe 1A. Sanders was dealing with that shoulder injury. He was just, I don't know. I really liked Dominic Johnson back in 2021 and hope he gets back to form because I do think he can help them, just a different kind of back than they have. Chris McFerrin says, who is the next bumper pool Jake Beckett of this group? Bumper pool Jake Beckett. I don't know. I don't know who those guys are. You talking about like a guy who played all 4 years, and I don't know what we're asking exactly on who's the next bumper pool. I guess who's the next good defensive end. I mean, they've had good defensive ends since Jake Beckett. At linebacker, Jaheim Thomas, I think, is intriguing because he's a big dude. He's 6'4", 235, 245 or so, and had a lot of experience. Racked up like 80 tackles for Cincinnati last year. Defensive end, I mean, I really think Landon Jackson has a chance to do some special things this year. So we'll see. Dustin Hooven says, who is the 2023 center? That's Bo Limmer. How does that affect someone like Jefferson after having the same guy for a couple of seasons? I mean, it could make a bit of a difference, but, I mean, they're practicing together. They've been practicing. Bo Limmer, out of everybody on the offensive line, they moved guys in and out. They came out with a different offensive line. Probably like the first 10 practices, it was a different offensive line. But the one constant every week was Bo Limmer was the starting center. And Brady Latham was starting just somewhere different every time they were trying him out all different places. But you're going to see Bo Limmer be the starting center. He was there every single practice, all 15 practices this spring. At least he was there all 13 practices that I attended. They were open. There were only 13 open. I attended all of them for about an hour each. One of them was longer. 2 of them were longer. One of them was a spring game, and the other one was they let us stay the whole time. Justin Williams says, I believe having KJ and Rocket, that this Arkansas team can go on the road and win versus LSU and Bama this year. That LSU game, first road game, is going to be really big, determining how Arkansas does in that one. Versus LSU and Bama this year, I just think that KJ is just going to be a monster this year. They played Alabama really good year before last at Alabama. I just think KJ is going to be a monster this year, and his motivation is up after the way last year went. Just wanted him to stay healthy, get through a whole season healthy, and that would be really beneficial for Arkansas. One last time before we get out of here, guys, thank you for all your questions. If you haven't signed up at HawgSports.com, if you've ever wondered what we offer there, man, recruiting is wild right now. It is going crazy. Danny West is just cranking out one story after another, interacting on the message boards, answering your questions, putting out updates on how things are going with recruiting. I would expect to start seeing a surge here. He mentioned, a couple of guys deciding pretty soon here. So if you want to sign up at HawgSports, there's no promo code. Just go to HawgSports.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network under the CBS Interactive umbrella, Paramount Global and whatnot. This is until June 15th at 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. Excuse me, Central Daylight Time. June 15th, Central Daylight Time, 11 o'clock. 83 cents a week, $358 a month, and billed at just $42.96 for the entire year. That's HAWGsports.com, 60% off until June 15th at 11 p.m. Go to HawgSports and sign up right now. All right, everybody. Thanks to Danny West for hopping on with us. Really appreciate all you guys watching the show and giving us that thumbs up or like on Facebook or YouTube, and throwing us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't done so already. The last review we had on Apple Podcasts was a novel, and I really appreciate that. I mean, it's like this long on my phone, so really appreciate that review. But let other people know what you think of the show, and throw us that 5-star review if you're enjoying it, and sign up at HawgSports. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.